We'll just make a start. Good morning, everyone, and warm Pacific greetings from the Pacific Farm Organization. And before we start, just a reminder, if you haven't done so, if you can just put in your name and the organization you represent in the chat. Today's session is focused on the topic of farmer-led research from diverse perspectives. And we have impressive line of panelists today from around the Pacific, which from whom we'll be hearing from a bit later on. The session today is designed to be interactive as well. We'll do a few polls along the way, just to get some information and break the ice throughout the discussions and to ensure that everyone is involved as well. If you have any questions, please also put them in the chat. We'll have a round of Q&A at the end of the session. So the session today is basically intended to continue our discussion on this topic of farmer research and make sure that we have a set of diverse perspectives from around the Pacific. The session today has been designed specifically for key stakeholders. And we have also representatives and partners from around the Pacific, apart from the key implementers of the FORI project, the Pacific Breadfruit project in the Pacific. The session will be part of a series of discussions, and hopefully we'll continue with these discussions in the coming months as well. Before we get on into things, I'd like to talk about a bit on the project itself. So the project is basically called FORI, if you're not aware, is a Farmer Organization in Research and Innovation on Agroecology for Sustainable Food Systems. The project in the Pacific is called the Pacific Breadfruit Project, and the focus areas include farmer action research, breadfruit agroecology, value chain strengthening, and value addition. The key partners in the project are Nishi Trading Limited, TUTU RURAL Training Center, TE TANGO ENUA, Kastom Gaden Association, and PNG Women in Agriculture. The target countries include Tonga, Fiji Islands, Cook Islands, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea. The objectives for the farm-led research roundtable today will be focused around, so what we are going to get out of this is we want to hear diverse perspectives on farmer-led research, find common ground for collaboration within individuals who are focused on breadfruit and agroecology and value addition, focusing on breadfruit around the Pacific, and to shape future research and policy directions. So that's basically it on what we expect from this roundtable and a bit on the project. Mary's now going to put on a link in the chat, which is a question on what does farmer-led research mean to you? So we'll just give it a few minutes. If you can just click on that link. The link is basically going to take you onto the Mentimeter site. And you can put in your short answers in there. So the question again is, what does farmer-led research mean to you? So if you can just go onto the link on the chat, and that will take you to the Mentimeter website where you can answer the question.
I don't see where to input a response. Am I the only one?
Mine says it's in view only mode.
Yeah, same here. How do we... Yeah, I'm not sure how to put in a response. Is anyone else able to use the form?
Chris, there's a Menti link on the chat.
Yeah, I clicked that and then it wasn't able to.
It works now.
Oh, it got
Yeah, there's
updated. Ah, okay. Thanks.
So we've got a few responses on there. One of the responses is focusing on farmers helping farmers, and then there's one on farmers playing an active role in the research process. And instead of being mere subjects or passive recipients of research outcomes, farmers collaborate. There's one on brings a bottom-up approach to solution finding and knowledge creation. Okay, so farmers lead the research. So there's a common theme emerging in terms of farmers leading research, research that is directed to the needs of the farmers, and farmers helping farmers to nourish sharing. If you can just continue putting in your responses in the meantime, I'd just like to invite our leading FOs to share their responses with the group. Maybe we'll start with Father Pedro in terms of what does farmer-led research mean to you? Father Pedro?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Moines. Greetings from the Garden Island of Fiji, from TUTU RURAL Training Center, and we are here with Suliano, our technical advisor, as well as one who's implementing all the activities. For us, excuse me, for the past year, so we were leading to the research and the project, also working with the clusters within our catchment area. It is being an eye-opener also for us as we adopt many of the principles and traditional knowledge, as well as knowledge sharing from farmers on the traditional food storage and other things that in regards with the development of breadfruit. As we are all aware here in Fiji, the breadfruit is not really a common stable food. And with the project, it creates an eye-opener also for farmers as a whole, that we are a crop we can diversify into. We have formed clusters, and mainly they are our former participants who are graduated from our TUTU program, and they're utilizing their own resources in more planting and the preservations of breadfruit within their own clusters. So at the moment, we continue on with the project, as we have submitted all the report. Learning is more on the knowledge sharing from traditional farmers, as well as how we are replicating the idea sharing now to our participants through the breadfruit festivals that we hold, as well as the development of breadfruit products through our food development unit. I think that's just basically where we are, just to sum up some of the key activities with the development of our breadfruit gene bank, as well as the development of our breadfruit nursery, where we've already propagate more of the 12 varieties here in Taveuni. The challenges is more the bringing in more planting materials from the other island through biosecurity reasons. But we really do acknowledge the project as a whole, that is developing further develop farmers how they can diversify into another crops that we believe here in TUTU that will be the crop for the future. I think that's just a little bit from us.
Exciting prospects with TUTU, with the reservation and the nursery that's been built to grow more breadfruit and then distribute that to the farmers. Next, we can hear from Danny from TE TANGO ENUA, please, on what does farmer-led research mean to you?
Okay. You can hear me? My mic is on?
Yeah, your mic is on. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone. It's March already. For us in the Cook Islands, well, this is the first time we've ever planted breadfruit. So a lot of our trees are, a few of our trees are about 2 meters, some of them 3 meter, yeah, about 2 meter. Some of them 3 meter and have started to bear occasional fruit. We don't know whether to prune it, or we know about the heights, but we know very little of how much sunshine we should let into the inside of the trees. So we also experimenting on that, on the pruning of the trees and looking after them. We also have integrating farms where we are planting kumara and maniota, arrowroots in between. We also have one plot that's got guava in between the breadfruit. We're also learning the branches are getting bigger. We did not project the spacing properly, because now all the branches are covering. It's too much. It's too much shade. But that's one thing we learned, because nobody else planted breadfruit before, and nobody ever planted the intercropping before. We're just basing our knowledge of what's on the internet and what I learned on our workshops when we come to meet together as our PFON family. The other one is we're just learning the different harvesting months of some of the varieties of breadfruit of the kuru. Some was harvesting in February, in December, January. We just had a celebration last week. Yes, we worked together with the tourism office in starting a celebration, celebrate the harvest. And we did that for 3 days. On the first day, we had and they came and they did cooking the food in the underground oven, and also the kuru to go with all these types of food, the pork, the chicken, the fish, the ruko, the leaves of the taro, traditional cooking, different ways of cooking the breadfruit in the underground oven. And it was a whole day event with, I think, a good 300, 200 people, students came to that activity. Then the next day we had at the market a competition of breadfruit soup, which is a traditional dish in the Cook Islands. Who could make the best one? So we had 1, 2, 3, 7 contestants that day. Everybody that came to the market had a chance to taste all these different recipes of the breadfruit. And then the last activity was on a Tuesday night, where we delivered the breadfruit to 2 restaurants, and 90 people came on 2 buses, locals and tourists. We went to 1 restaurant, and they had 3 dishes. Now, these are not local dishes. These are European dishes, but using the breadfruit ingredient to what is normally a tourist dish, but using the breadfruit ingredients. And each time everybody had to rate which one is the best one. So they had 3 in the first restaurant, because whichever one was chosen the most, they're going to put that from now on their menu, their normal menu. So we went to the second restaurant. They had 8 of these dishes that we had a taste of, and one of them was a lasagna, and the other one had like a sashimi, but all the other ingredients from breadfruit. So they sort of created this thing. And then the last place we had, they had a real traditional humukai type of feast, where you just sat down. A lot of us did not realize that the big one was at the end. So everybody, instead of tasting in the first 2, they were eating. And when we got to the last one, there was food galore at the last one. They had a pig out there killed. They had a big tuna. They had chicken. They had all the food cooked in the underground oven. And it was an awesome night. But the thing was, we worked with tourism, because they had an awesome team in marketing. They're the one that makes our tourism industry successful, so that we we were really glad they came on board to help support marketing of the breadfruit. So we also learned a lot of things. We had 10 of our members, farmers, and also committee members who went on that night. We took part in all the 3 activities, but the last night we ourselves learned a lot of things about the breadfruit. So for us here doing our farmer-led research, the other one is I was mentioning the different months of harvest. We sort of panicked in February when these 3 activities started. We didn't think there'll be enough breadfruit because there was the season, and then it sort of slowed down, and the next one is not ready yet. And we were caught in the middle. But fortunately, there was another variety of breadfruit available, so we had some supplies for these activities. The other one is the making of the flour. We still haven't started producing our flour yet, but we've been drying. We've been drying and drying. But I'll send the report for that one. That's from us in the Cook Islands in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Danny, for the thank you, Danny, for the update. Very interesting that restaurants are now picking up breadfruit in the menus, and that the resorts are getting into it as well. So exciting times ahead. Next, can we just hear from somebody from PNG, maybe Alberta, Dr. Simsa? If you could just stick to the question on what does farmer-led research mean to you, please.
Excuse me, I'll let Alberta as our leader to share her thoughts if she is on. Hello, Alberta, are you there?
I don't think Alberta's on. She's just taking notes on this meeting. So maybe we'll hear from you, Dr. Simsa.
I'm on it. Would you like me to share my thoughts, or because I've got a PowerPoint presentation as well?
Dr. Simsa, we'll do that later. If you just maybe just
Okay.
briefly, just
Great.
just
Yeah.
just say what does
well,
farmer-led research mean to you?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it is exciting. I am just so excited about farmer-led research. For me, basically, is that farmers take a lead in conducting research, which is a change, a shift from the former a traditional way in which all the research was being done or driven by people on research stations, scientists. But for farmers to take a lead in finding solutions to their own production issues, that is exciting. So for me, I'm for PFON to embrace the concept and tell us in the Pacific on this way of doing research is exciting. In fact, as you all, the common theme in which you all have expressed today is that farmers take a lead, farmers find their own solutions, and information from research is being made available as we, as farmers, as we do our own research to find solutions. We learn, and that to me is exciting. And we learn big time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simsa, for your
Now,
insights.
for if I can add what we are doing in Papua New Guinea is basically we have an on-farm trial which Mohinas and the others have been taken to in the Markham Valley. We're collecting data, but for me personally, is the marketing of breadfruit in another province in Madang, where I'm based, where we have farmers have marketed their breadfruit. The success rate is not so good enough. At least we have about 50%, but at least we have got some results. and we will fine-tune the technique. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simsa. Can you just briefly hear from somebody from Nishi Trading, maybe Jenny or Metui, please? And what does farmer-led research mean to you?
Sure. I can take a stab at it, Madui. So for us, it's about creating a sustainable breadfruit industry in Tonga. And I think by it being farmer-led, hopefully their innovations will be sustainable too. So they're actual real-life innovations that we're doing that we'll be able to carry on and that we can change too. So if something's not working, we're going to change it as soon as we can because it impacts our livelihood straight away. So I think that's what's exciting about the research being farmer-led.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. I don't think we have a representative from KGA, so we'll just move on to the next part of the session, which is going to be the presentations from the panelists. So we have an awesome line of panelists today, including Dr. Simsa. We've got Chris, I've got Noel, and we've got Suliano from TRTC. Just a reminder, if you've just joined, if you can just put in your name and the organization you represent in the chat. And we've also got a poll going, and we'd love to hear your views on what does farmer-led research mean to you. So there's a pinned chat with the link to the Mentimeter site where you can enter in your responses. So we'll start off with Dr. Simsa, who's a project consultant for PNG Women, and he has also been part of NARI in PNG as well, and he brings with him a wealth of expertise from not just within PNG but regionally as well. Dr. Simsa, before you get into your presentation, I would like to ask you, what are the, if you can just briefly answer this question before we move on, what are some of the barriers for researchers to adopt farmer-led research, and how have you experienced this in your project? So if you can just briefly answer that question before you move into your presentation. So the question again, Dr. Simsa, is what are some of the barriers for researchers to adopt farmer-led research, and how have you experienced this in your project? Dr. Simsa?
Thank you, Moines. The barriers, in my view, perhaps the mindset in which we have in research. A lot of researchers, well, we're thinking we know it all, and well, you know, we have to have the skills to really connect with farmers. We have to come down to farmer level and then just use words, you know, which farmers can understand. Connecting to farmers is very, very important. The other barrier is the fact that all the research is being done on research stations with hardly any involvement by farmers. So those are some of the barriers, you know, in my view, which make it difficult for farmers to learn. And we have to build these bridges so that is farmers can identify priorities for research which can address the issues, and also involvement in doing research with researchers or with scientists, so that collectively farmers can learn, can see how we can identify and conduct research to address issues which affect farmers. That are some barriers, you know. But you know, I will share later, you know, how PFON has embraced this farm-led research concept, which involves farmers right from the beginning to identify problems and then conduct research to address those problem issues. Thank you. Hi, Moines. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Sims, would you still like to go through your presentation briefly, or?
Yes, I can go through that now.
Unless you've covered it?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to me, um, yeah, the question is, what is farmer-led research? And to me, farmer-led research is a process of inquiry. Inquiry is a research where farmers, as beneficiaries, use scientific methods to address their own on-farm challenges. Now, this is a shift from conventional research in which all the research is being done on research stations, research centers by researchers, with hardly any involvement by the beneficiaries, which are farmers. So, as I've said early on, why is that so? Many efforts in the past to transform scientific knowledge from research into sustainable agriculture and natural resource management have brought limited benefits to smallholder farmers. But the overall aim of scientific research is that information and knowledge generated from research will be utilized by farmers to address farm production issues. However, as you all know, this often does not happen. This can be due to many factors, as I've mentioned early on: limited extension and research capacity and support, lack of effective research extension priorities, and understanding of effective farm engagement approaches. Now, I would like to focus more on understanding of effective farmer engagement approaches. Researchers must know how to engage farmers, how to create an environment where they can connect with farmers. This is very important. How do we come into communities to work with farmers? That is very important. That has been lacking for a long time throughout the world, and now there's a shift now. So donors, policymakers, or those who make decisions on funding of research and extension, civil society organizations, development partners have been urging formal agricultural research and development sector to make its research more relevant for smallholder farmers. So this push by donors, policymakers, and others to at least inform research organizations that they have to make or find ways in which the research being done on research centers or stations, that information and that innovation, that technology can be made available for smallholder farmers. That was the push for the past 10 years or so. So this has led to examining the principles and the tools and approaches to conduct research. That knowledge is generated by Agricultural Research for Development, or AR4D, leads to actions and farm impacts with improved livelihoods and household incomes. What approach do we use as researchers, as scientists, that the research which we conduct on research stations, in laboratories, or even in universities, how does that translate into improved livelihoods for our people, our smallholder farmers? So that has led to a major lesson, a shift to user-driven research and co-production. Co-production meaning that the beneficiaries, farmers in particular, must be involved in identifying the priorities, must be involved in implementing the research, must be involved in monitoring and evaluation, and also seeing the impact of the research. That farmers, right in the forefront, right in the beginning, they must be involved so that they can understand and then they can appreciate how the research is finding solutions to the problems. The problems could be insect pest. The problems could be fertilizer to improve crop growth and bring more higher yield. How a particular innovation can generate higher income for our farmers. Yeah, so at least we must have upfront farmer involvement. Yeah, so farmer-led research is where farmers collectively with researchers, extension agents, and development partners identify researchable issues and implement activities, conduct research to find solutions. This, in my way, is a very effective way in which farmers can learn, farmers can embrace the knowledge, farmers can know about an innovation which is developed through research. And this is a paradigm shift. And this shift wasn't easy and still isn't easy for researchers and scientists to embrace the approach. So it's a big shift in the way research thinking and doing. So this is the story of PFON. PFON has embraced the farmer-led research concept and is engaging farmers throughout in all the project countries, partner countries in the Pacific, and that's the beauty. This is a whole shift on how research has been done, or is being done, and will be done. And we in the Pacific, I am just so excited about this because that was part of my passion when I was still in the formal research setting, but now I have left, and I have been encouraging our researchers, our scientists to embrace this new approach to how we can engage with farmers. How can we come down to a farmer level and then walk the journey together with farmers to find solutions to problems which affect farmers in the field. So I want to commend PFON, the PFON Secretariat, for this insight in how we can really engage farmers, and then for farmers to learn, and all the different approaches like festivals, which PFON has organized, all the workshops, which PFON has organized, farm exchanges, the research which farmers have taken a lead on breadfruit, like the research being done in Tonga and Cook Islands, Samoa, Fiji, Solomon Islands in PNG. Farmers are leading that. And by taking part in our research, you learn about how to solve issues, and that's the exciting thing. Yes. Thank you. And I think I'll end up. Hi, Danny. Yes, go ahead, please.
So what have you done in Papua New Guinea based on what you just said?
What we have done so far is basically this on-farm trial in the Makam Valley, and as well as marketing. And this year we plan to have a breadfruit festival where we will try out various dishes, basically to get our people to know that the staple breadfruit, which we are growing, we can change the form so that a lot more people can enjoy, especially school children. And that's, in my view, is what we will focus on, to get our school children to be involved with this breadfruit festival so that they can at least appreciate the easily available food, which is nutritious for them. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Dr. Sims, for your insights. Really love the fact on you sharing that there's a shift happening from conventional research to farmer-led research, and thank you for advocating for farmer-led research in PNG. And I really loved the last bullet point on your slide, which said farmer impacts are real. So that's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Simpson. Next up on the panel, we have Chris, who is the agroforestry expert at Hawaii Ulu Cooperative. Chris, before you begin, just a question. So if you just answer this briefly before you continue. So what are some of the examples of farmer-led research when it comes to breadfruit in Hawaii, and how can we encourage more of this innovation and sharing amongst farmers? So Chris, I'll just repeat that. What are some of the examples of farmer-led innovation when it comes to breadfruit in Hawaii, and how can we encourage more of this innovation and sharing amongst farmers? Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, aloha, thank you. Yeah, there's a ton of examples, you know, from mainly around the management of breadfruit production. So everything from pruning best practices to nutrient management, disease management, different pest solutions. So there's a ton, and you know, we at the co-op that I work for, we've used that research to help develop resources that are more digestible and easier for farmers to utilize. And then we host it on our website. We host workshops. We do webinars. Everything, you know, our role is to help disseminate that information. And yeah, there's a lot of examples, and I have a little presentation. Should I get started with that, Moinesh?
Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, you can share.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Just give me a second. All right. How do I do this?
Okay, it's coming up, I think. Okay.
Are we able to see?
Yeah, we
screen?
can see your screen now. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Again, so my name is Chris Kaiakapu. I'm the agroforestry specialist with the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative. I'm based on the island of Kauai, and I've been in this role for maybe 1.5 years now. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is an olelo no eau, auhe pau ka ike I ka halau ho'okahi, which means not all knowledge is found in one school. I don't consider myself an expert, but I'm here to share what I know. And there's a couple pictures of some beautiful Ulu agroforestry installations going in on Hawaii Island. So a little bit about the co-op. We've got about 160 plus members, farmers who own a stake in the cooperative. And our mission is to, you know, revitalize ulu as a staple crop in Hawaii. Ulu is Hawaiian word for breadfruit. Hopefully everybody knows that, but yeah, so the way the co-op works is the farmers can sell their crop to the co-op. We aggregate, store, and process all of it, and then we market it, get it all into stores and restaurants and institutions. Then we also do a lot of education for the general public, for the farming community, and all of that. And the profits are then redistributed to the farmers. So the farmers own a stake in the cooperative business. We're on 4 different islands now, and we have, I don't know, a number of drop-off locations, but, you know, very diverse group of farmers. A lot are just backyard, kind of small farms, subsistence, homesteader type. And we do have a decent percentage of Native Hawaiians in the membership, which is great. And yeah, so that's who we are as a cooperative. As far as farmer-led research, I want to start with why I believe it's important. So all of our indigenous peoples were the original environmental scientists, right? We were just observing and making informed decisions all the time. We were conducting our own science, and it was almost always focused around food production and how do we be more productive and efficient and responsible with our resources. And now in modern times, we kind of, what I see is this trifecta partnership between researchers, farmers, and farmer organizations. And that's really, I think, what helps drive it forward and the way that it should be helping to be cooperative and make sure that researchers are spending their time and their studies on things that are going to be benefiting farmers and the greater food system, make sure farmers' voices are being heard, and make sure us, the middleman, are helping both ways and helping to coordinate and connect researchers and farmers. So it helps keep the research directed and applicable. It helps us produce resources and disseminate that information to growers and the general community. And the bottom line is that it helps farmers to be more productive. Some of the challenges that we've identified is just engaging farmers and getting them to be responsive, because farmers are extremely busy. So what we found is that you need to meet them at the farm and be flexible and kind of really meet them on their terms. A lot of times there's language barriers. A lot of the research institutions that we're working with are very Western English speaking and maybe don't understand the local language. And a lot of our local farmers are not English first language speakers. So they speak Hawaiian, they speak Chinese, they speak Filipino, Thai, Vietnamese, very diverse. And some of those things are very real barriers to working with English speaking researchers. Funding is always an issue, especially now more than ever, at least, Hawaii being tied to the United States, and our recent change in the executive administration. Their priorities are much different. And so funding is on shaky ground for agriculture in general, but definitely agricultural research. And then just disseminating and applying the research effectively is often a challenge. Finding the resources, the labor to actually come up with and develop these online resources or put on these workshops or webinars that are going to be helpful for farmers is a challenge. And making sure that the research doesn't go published then off in the wind, making sure it actually gets applied is definitely a challenge. Let's see. So some past examples I wanted to highlight. So the way we see the chain working is the farmers work with us, the Ulu Co-op, as the farmer organization. We work with the researchers, which is for us is generally the University of Hawaii and the Indigenous Cropping Systems Laboratory. And then we develop production guides and other resources like these listed here to in order to help our membership and the general farming community. So just as an example, a resource. So this is our website, ulu.coop. We've produced, a pruning handbook that anyone can go through and learn the details of pruning ulu trees. And then we have tons of other guides, everything from general agroforestry guides to harvesting guidelines and maturity indicators, things like that. And a lot of these things, a lot of these guides and these educational resources have been developed after research that's been conducted alongside farmers. And so, yeah, this is a short list of some of the resources we've developed: the nutrient management guide, a disease guide, Ulu agroforestry guide. One of the most recent and I think ongoing studies is the use of insect parasitic nematodes as a biocontrol for the Queensland longhorn beetle, which is a recent pest that is affecting ulu trees and other trees in Hawaii. And a researcher through UH who was studying nematodes and their potential to, parasitize and control these beetles, then worked with our farmers directly to try and treat their trees, and is now, furthering research in application methods. How best can we use methods and apply them? How are they best applied for the control of Queensland longhorn beetle? So that's a perfect example of farmer-led and farmer-inclusive research addressing the real needs of farmers today, and in breadfruit. So more current examples. We currently have a breadfruit post-harvest handling and shelf life study going on. And so this is looking at, the impacts or the effects of impact and abrasion on fruit when you're harvesting. It's also looking at the effect of ethylene gas, basically the fruit ripening gas that's emitted from fruit. And if we, basically looking at if you can remove or technologies that can remove the gas and improve air circulation, how does that affect ripening and shelf life of breadfruit? They're looking at the effect of food grade coatings, which is used widely in other fruit industries. And then they're also looking at our wet and dry process line efficiencies to how can we improve our processing efficiencies to maximize our capacity, at the warehouse, at the processing plant. There's another study going on right now, the agroforestry adoption study, trying to understand the barriers that farmers face with adopting agroforestry practices. So some of them might be like conventional orchard farmers or very monocrop style farmers. And we want to understand, okay, what is it that is preventing you from adopting agroforestry and more diverse practices, things that we understand to be more beneficial or less harmful on the environment, as opposed to the conventional practices. And so understanding those barriers is going to be key if we're going to transition more people into agroforestry practices. And then another important one going on right now is undulate and weed management control. Undulates is just referring to feral pigs, our pua'a, which are really problematic and damaging to new ulu establishments. And this study in particular was guided based off of our membership needs assessment. So we survey and assess our membership needs, and a lot of them have found that pigs are a huge problem, and weed management. Our young trees are dying because they're inundated by guinea grass and other weeds. And so we helped a researcher, apply for this grant to do field trials with farmers to study their different management practices and equipment. And hopefully we hope to inform, once the findings are published, we hope to develop resources and promote the new best practices that are learned. So yeah, then this graph here is a result of our needs assessment. So our role as the farmer organization, playing basically middleman between the farmer and researcher, and helping facilitate that research, we first need to help conduct needs assessments. So we collect and analyze the social data. It's usually qualitative data. We do this every year or every other year and generate a report. You know, this is just surveying all of our farmers, and then we generate, you know, something like this graph, and these are all of what our farmers are reporting as things they need help with. And this is by region. So, you know, Kauai is one island. There's different regions of the Big Island. There's Oahu. And so that's what the colors are representing, is different regions across Hawaii. And you can see we have our needs, whether it's financial and fencing, whether it's harvest assistance, whether it's new planting design, fertilization, pest and disease, all of these needs. And we can use this info to help direct and communicate to researchers where the needs are, where our farmers need help. And if we have a researcher or some specialist that is, you know, a specialist in any one of these categories or interested in, then that's how we can, yeah, facilitate, connect farmers with researchers and help guide that study. And then once we get the, you know, the research is done and we can digest the findings and help develop resources and get that information out back to farmers in a digestible way. So we'll host webinars, put on in-person workshops. We put the info out in our email newsletter, website blogs, like I showed, and social media. And this is our role in disseminating information. And yeah, just to summarize, I guess it's important to understand what is your role in farmer-led research. So for me, I work at the co-op. Like I said, we're the farmer organization, right? And I see it as we're kind of like this middleman playing facilitator between the researchers and the farmers. How can you advance research that includes and benefits farmers? So if you're a farmer, just get involved, voice your needs and potential solutions that need more research, network with us, like the local farmer organizations. If you're a farmer org, assess your farmers' needs, collect their input, collaborate with research institutions and help connect them to the farmers, and then help disseminate the information that comes out of that research. If you're a researcher, connect with your local farmer orgs because they're the ones that will know all of the farmers. And then when it comes down to it, be willing to meet the farmers on their terms, and allow their needs to guide the research focus. And lean on the farmer orgs, lean on us to help apply the research and develop, you know, resources, disseminate the information. And I think that's about it. That's all I got. Does anybody have any questions? I tried to be quick.
Well done.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's awesome. Yeah. No, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah. We'll do a quick round of Q&A at the end, and if anybody does have any questions, feel free to drop that in the chat, and we'll get to it at the end of the session. Thank you once again. Thank you for sharing the work that the Ulu Co-op is doing in Hawaii and the permanent research is being undertaken. Personally, I'm really interested in the outcome of the research on the post-harvest handling and the shelf life research on the ethylene removal. So that's going to be really groundbreaking if you get some good results out of that. Before we move on to Noel, we'll just I'm putting in the link onto the chat. So this is for another survey that we'd like you to just complete. It's on the same website, and the question is basically around where do we need the most innovation? So if you can just click on that link while Noel is speaking, and just enter in your responses. It's a multiple choice question with 5 responses which you can pick from. So Noel, before you start your presentation, just a question to you. How can formal research institutions like the Breadfruit Institute better support farmer-led innovation? So if you could just answer that before you continue with the presentation, please.
So how can how can organizations like the Breadfruit Institute better support farmers
Support
organizations?
farmer-led
Well,
farmer-led
that's
research.
what we're here. Yeah, you know, farmer-led research. So that's what we're here to kind of understand better. And the Breadfruit Institute historically has been very low capacity and has really focused on understanding the diverse collection that's here at National Tropical Botanical Garden. And that has kind of encompassed the full focus and capacity of the Breadfruit Institute. Over the last 2 years, we have increased capacity ever so slightly. We now have our tropical crop diversity scientist, Dr. Julia Avila, who's actually joining us today, as well as Breadfruit collections manager that's posted there on Maui at Kahanu Garden, Kaitu Aracito. And then myself, and I've worked for the Institute for the last, I don't know, 8 years or so, since 2016. Initially hired to establish and manage the Breadfruit Agroforestry project and demonstration here at McBride Garden, and have kind of worn many hats and taken on many roles here, and kind of am coordinator and have had the opportunity to work on a PhD, which I'm still working on, and have gotten a master's degree. It was really nice to hear Samsar talk about kind of farmer-led research from his perspective, because it very much aligns with my training through the University of Copenhagen, where we take participatory methodology to understand what questions should be asked, not based on what we think, but as researchers, but what is come up with together with farmers. And so these are approaches, they sometimes call them biocultural approach. So maybe, I don't know if that answered your question, but we're very important. I think it's very important for collections and repositories. We're not a governmental repository, we're a nonprofit, but I think it's very important for these repositories of useful plants and crops to understand and engage with farmers. And so we're here to understand how we might best fit into this farmer-led research paradigm that PFON is so good at. So I have a presentation, Mohinesh, but it's really very much about what the collection is and who we are, and the work that we're currently doing.
Okay.
I will say that I'm just going to reiterate again that Julia and I are here to really understand the Pacific Islands perspective, since the collection itself does not just represent Hawaii. It very much represents more so the Pacific Islands. And so we really want to understand like how we might best position ourselves to engage with communities, and not just on a repository to repository governmental or sort of formal level. So do you think it will be useful for me to share about Breadfruit Institute? Mohinesh?
It's up to you. You've got 5 minutes, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can fly through it really quick. Let's see if I can find my presentation here. Is it what's being shared? I don't know. Okay, here we go. Let me just put it in presenter mode. And let's see. Okay, slideshow. Okay, so yes, we're the Breadfruit Institute. This is the Breadfruit Institute at the National Tropical Botanical Garden. And we do have a mission. It's to promote the conservation, study, and use of breadfruit for food and reforestation. And the collection here, we've really been talking about kind of shifting as we have new and increased capacity. we've been really exploring our strategic plan and how to focus not just on conservation of the collection, but biocultural conservation of the collection. Yes, and I'm Noel. I'm from Kauai, West Kauai. I'm a small farmer as well. We grow mostly neem trees and make neem oil, but we also have some breadfruit, maybe like 5 breadfruit trees. This presentation basically talks about what is National Tropical Botanical Garden, the Breadfruit Institute, who are our staff, and the collection, as well as some work we're doing to conserve breadfruit. So there's NTBG, or the National Tropical Botanical Garden, is made up of 5 gardens. There are 3 here on Kauai, Allerton Garden and McBride Garden, and then Limahuli Garden up on the north shore of Kauai. On Maui, where the bulk of the collection is Kahanu Garden. And then the Kampong is actually in the state of Florida on the mainland. And NTBG is kind of like, we call ourselves a garden of science. We have large collections, living collections of plants, that each plant kind of on a very basic level has a call number similar to books in a library. And these plants then have this information that's associated with them from notes about where they were collected and what situation they were in, but also sometimes ethnobotanical notes. And so, yeah. The Breadfruit Institute was established in 2003 by Dr. Diane Rigoni. It is a program within the Science and Conservation Department here at National Tropical Botanical Garden. And Dr. Rigoni's work, so the inspiration or the reason to establish Breadfruit Institute was because Dr. Rigoni's work brought her to, field work brought her to 34 different Pacific islands, where she made some collections of breadfruit and other useful crops. And the garden felt a need to really study and understand this collection better. The reason for Dr. Rigoni's extensive field work was because as a young PhD student, she recognized that breadfruit was in need of conservation and kind of was lacking study. So now Dr. Rigoni is actually still part of the Breadfruit Institute, but she's our director emerita, which means she's like semi-retired. So we still have access to her, to contact her, and she comes to the gardens every so often, but she's really focusing most of her time on writing a book about breadfruit and her extensive field work and things that she's learned over the years. So, yes. And then our staff, like I mentioned, we have Dr. Julia Avila, who is a tropical crop diversity scientist, and she's based here at our headquarters in McBride Garden on Kauai. And then myself, I am coordinator. I also manage a agroforestry technician, Neil Uno, who works down in McBride Garden, managing the Breadfruit Agroforestry project. And then Kaitu Aracito, our breadfruit collections manager, and he's based at Kahanu Garden on Maui. So his work has really focused on, over the last year or so, caring for the collection, so it's getting up in age. And there are some trees that we've designated as at risk, and so he's focusing on some duplication of those at-risk accessions or trees. So yes, like I mentioned, the collection, here's kind of like that top picture, is in one of the sections of the collection. And these trees, each one represents a single accession, I believe. There may be some duplicates in there. And so we have 380 accessions or trees representing the 3 species of the breadfruit complex. So not to get too sciencey, but there's the breadfruit complex basically is made up of breadnut, which is the ancestor to breadfruit, or the wild crop relative to breadfruit. Dokdok, which is also a wild crop relative or a forest tree, and then breadfruit, which our collection has 150 cultivars within our collection. There's also several breadfruit hybrids within the collection as well. So here you see some of the diversity of fruits, and then Kaitu and one of our interns working with Diane and kind of studying the trees. So during Diane's work, she actually found that there were more than 2,000 vernacular names for breadfruit documented across the Pacific. She also recorded other ethnobotanical information, including cultivation practices, use, preparation, as well as fruit storage practices. And this QR code will take you to our resources page where you can find this map that kind of gives examples. They're not the only name for breadfruit, but gives examples of names for breadfruit in different island nations across the Pacific. Yeah. And then just really quickly, I'll go through really quickly how many accessions or how many trees we have of each type. So we have breadnut, Artocarpus camansi. There are about 34 accessions here at NTBG. And these are indigenous to Papua New Guinea. And our forest trees, they tend to be very, very tall and have buttress roots. And as you can see in the picture, have large seeds throughout. And they are edible seeds, and the fruit itself is edible. Then we have Dokdok, or Artocarpus camansi, or excuse me, mariensis. And this one is a forest tree in Palau, Guam, and the Marianas Islands. It also has some seeds in it and has a very different texture, sort of fruit skin texture than breadnut. It's more pebbly. And then here's some examples of our breadfruit collection. So these are Artocarpus altilis. There's 268 accessions currently, and those represent 150 varieties. They tend to have smoother skin than the Dokdok and breadnut, and but their morphology or their look of the fruit can change, and this is dependent on the island nation where it's from and the topography, as well as like historical selection. And then there's hybrids of breadfruit that are primarily found in Micronesia. And we have about 70 trees that represent 39 varieties of hybrid breadfruit. So these can be seeded and not seeded, and they tend to kind of have a more oblong shape and some from pebbly to spiky textured, skin textured fruit. So we've really, since the collection is so big, and there's so many trees, we've really been trying to hone in on prioritizing the collection management. So with the age of the trees, of some of these trees, they've been, they're kind of feeble. And so we've focused in, and Kaitu's actually working on a manuscript based on his systematic data collection while he's air layering these at-risk varieties of breadfruit within our collection. We've also been doing some monitoring. So last year I did my master's thesis on a community sort of engagement project where we went into the community and followed up with community members and farmers who had received breadfruit trees during a distribution that happened between 2012 and 2015. And there were farmers, there was home gardeners, and there were school sites as well as nonprofit organizations we visited. And by and large, we found that most of the trees were healthy despite having some kind of major pruning and sometimes poor pruning practices that the thing that was most valuable about these trees, breadfruit trees, to the growers was that these trees were really producing a lot of fruit and didn't take a lot of care and maintenance to fruit to have a harvest. So we're actually, so this kind of aligns with one of those bullet points of focus topics. And so we are collecting vouchers from the collection itself. And that means we're collecting specimens that are going to be pressed and dried. And these will represent sort of be cataloged within our herbarium. So this has to do with kind of germplasm and germplasm management, and really documenting what you have very well. And then you can see, oh, I went back. Then you can see the finished product here. So in the end, the picture on the right kind of shows what a herbarium specimen looks like. So you have a nice example of a mature fruit, a leaf, and if possible, you want a male flower in there as well, so that you can get all the kind of major features of the tree. And so this is something that I think the Institute is well positioned to help with, or to kind of give advice on. So yeah. And then we're kind of trying to understand the collection and where it sits as far as ex situ conservation collections in the Pacific, and also kind of exploring in situ use of the trees. Like I mentioned, we did this community survey of trees. And then we also have the regenerative organic breadfruit agroforestry demonstration in McBride Garden. And so that from this demonstration, it comprises of about 32 trees, breadfruit trees. And then around the trees are a myriad, kind of a large diversity of different plants, useful plants and biomass plants. We harvest every week, primarily breadfruit from the collection there. And we, so far, since 2017, have donated more than 30 tons of fresh produce to the Kauai Independent Food Bank here on Kauai that kind of serves that serves communities across Kauai. Yeah, and that's it. And you can contact us. There's our emails. And oh, this phone number, I don't know who you will get, but maybe somebody here in the office where I'm at. Yeah, so maybe I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Noel, for the insightful presentation and sharing what the Breadfruit Institute is doing in Hawaii. So we're almost close to finishing off. We've got 5 minutes left. So maybe what we'll do is I think we'll just move the presentation from TRTC to the next session that we'll be organizing for next month. If you haven't done so already, if you can just answer the poll that was put onto the chat. So the question was, where do we need the most innovation? So if you can just click on that link for Mentimeter, and if you can just answer that poll, please. Before we close off, I had also shared a concept note on regional innovation clusters, which you can join. There is a Google form available for you to be able to join the different regional clusters that we are trying to form for knowledge sharing and collaboration, which will basically be bringing together key stakeholders and farmers and researchers and industry experts to advance practical solutions around the Pacific. So there are 4 clusters, that you can join. There is one on value chain development. There is one on germplasm conservation exchange. There's one on agroforestry and sustainable farming systems, and propagation and tree management. So I'll follow this up with an email and share with you the details of the regional innovation clusters and how you can join in. My apologies, we're not able to have a Q&A session for this session, but hopefully we can have time for that in the next session. I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining in and sharing, and I'd like to also thank everyone for joining in as well. So thank you very much. And
Thank you. Naka.